If you want to go out for dinner, you might look on TripAdvisor, you might ask where the best places are, you might look at the cuisine choice, you might look at the prices. But how exactly do we do due diligence on property? When doing your due diligence, you can either do it all manually, which obviously takes time, but it is a good experience, or you can find software that puts it all in one place. So I'll go through software and what my favorite one is right now, especially with developments right now and to find buy-to-let portfolios. But manually, you kind of want to think about a few different things. So number one, you want to think about what improvements and developments are going on in the area. So where you can find this is your SHLA, which is your SHLAA, or you just Google Leeds redevelopment or development zone. So in Leeds, for example, we have got the South Bank development, which is around 350 football pitches worth of development. It's one of the biggest regeneration zones in Europe right now, one of the biggest investments in regeneration that's ever happened in Europe as well. So pretty crazy place to be, right? So you can actually find out in your local area where that's happening. The next thing you want to look at is your breakdown, your tenure of property. So you might not know this, but around 30% of the property in the UK is owned outright, owner-occupier. 30% of the UK is owned with a mortgage owner-occupier. Around 21% is owned as a private landlord, and around 19% in social housing. One of the old school ways of finding that is on streetcheck.co.uk, or property data is a little bit more up to date, but that's called tenure of property. What's really important with those figures is that you compare them with your local area. So if you've got an area where that 30 to 60% is higher, let's say you've got 70% between those two, then that's going to show that there are more buyers looking in the area, which pushes the capital growth. If you've got a higher private rental sector, which is the 21% on average across the UK, then that's going to assume that there's a strong rental market, and you want to use that as a comparison to understand. The next thing when doing your due diligence is the yields in the area. Now, yields on its own doesn't really mean anything, but it's the rent versus property prices. And you want to find that balance to a really strong area. For example, in Huddersfield, it's around 9.8%. In Leeds, it's more like 6.5%. South of Leeds, there's some areas where you can get as high as 8.5%. And all of that's going to tell a story when you're going out there to do your DD. The next thing is you want to think about your power team. Now, your power team could involve your mentor. It could involve your mortgage broker. It could involve your solicitor. It could involve your refurb team, maybe a quantity surveyor, your architect, and so much more. But everything that you want, you need to be reaching out to individuals. And again, you can do this with software, by the way, but manually is going to involve going into Facebook groups, property Facebook groups. Go to the free ones. They're big. They've got a load of people. And then you are reaching out to those individuals and helping them understand what you need from them and can they fit the bill. If they can't, obviously you bin them. If you can, you start building a relationship and do your research on them to make sure they can actually deliver on their product. To make sure for you, if you are the investor, to make sure you're getting the best service possible. And if it's for one of your investors and you're packaging on the deals, you want to make sure you're bringing the highest level of service possible. The other thing I'd look into is the demographic in the area. So, is it that most people are working professionals in the area, or is it that most people are on benefits? Now, the demographics go from A, B to DE, and it's this ratio. And again, you can find this on Street Check if you do your research. The average in the UK, there's 4 segments, is 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. And obviously what you're looking at is to not have like 40% in DE, which is going to be benefit tenants or basic labour. And the reason for that is nothing against them as individuals. It's that mortgageability does get harder, and the tenant type you're typically attracting isn't really somebody that's looking to make your house into their home. So there are the manual ways of doing it, but there is software out there that happens to be today's video sponsor, Nimbus Maps. Now, you can do analysis on your own. You can use spreadsheets, etc. But the thing that I love about Nimbus is it collates it and extrapolates it all in one place in a visual way. So if you've been watching my videos on Nimbus, you'll see that I like the map feature as much as possible. So you can actually go around. So I've gone into Armley Leeds here. And the bits that I really like, think's good, is the comparables, the market and the technical analysis part of that. And this is in the location analysis over on the right hand side. So as you can see, I'm over in Armley right now. And if I click on comparables, I can really break it down into residential and commercial comparables. Most of you are going to be looking for residential, so C3 dwellings, C4 dwellings, which is residential buy-to-lets and HMOs, things like that. And this can be really powerful for it. So, but if not, you can click on commercial and have a look at that. But let's focus on resi because most of us are on that, right? Actually, just so I've got a bit of feedback, put resi or commercial in the comments right now so I can get some feedback from you on what you're actually looking at. Then I can tailor future videos around that. So let's open up residential. First thing that happens on here is you can narrow it down. So you can go the building size. So for example, let's say you're doing your typical semi-detached or terrace properties. You're not going to be looking at 100,000 square foot properties. So we might as well narrow that down to, I'd say anything up to about 1,500 square foot is most properties. Let's look at terrace and semi-detached. For example, if I'm looking at buy-to-let properties, a majority for me are going to be terrace and semi-detached. I'm going to look at second-hand properties because I don't really like looking at new build properties. It's not really for me or my investors. And then I primarily focus on freehold properties sold within the last 12 months because I think it's going to give me the most accurate standing and understanding of that. And then I really like looking at the sold prices rather than an index price, which is always going to be slightly higher, as you can see from all the prices. So I'm going to go sold. You can either do pound per square foot. And I think that's quite good, by the way, just to understand more professional property investors, they will get to understand price per square foot. Just so you know, you understand how people actually find these numbers. If you're going to do the price per square foot manually, is you get the average price or the price of the property sold, and let's say it's 140,000. And then on the EPC, the Energy Performance Certificate, you can actually see from that certificate the square footage of the property, and then you get the price of the property, divide that by the square footage, and then that gives you the price per square foot, or Nimbus Maps does it all for you. So I'm going to go for price, sold prices, and then close that. And then as you can see, that these are the average prices in the area, which is a really good indication. So you can zoom in, you know, as much as you want to these properties down here. So say, for example, I had a property that I was buying on one of these streets over here. We've got all these terrace properties here. So let's say I'm going to be buying one here. Well, I'd want to do my due diligence, right? And understand, well, what's the difference between these properties and that property? But I can see by clicking on this property, the price per square foot is £155. Great. That is going to be a really good indication of what it's going to be worth. Now, the index price, by the way, just so you understand what it means, is it's factoring in the growth in the market in that area. So, for example, that £169,000 was at £155, but it's gone up £3 per square foot. Now, you might not think that's a lot, but bearing in mind, that was in, when was it? September 2021. So at the time of filming this, it's not even 12 months later and it's already gone up quite significantly. So it's probably worth about 175-ish right now. So say I was looking at this property here, which I can see is a HMO. It's not divided, so it's a C4 use. It's a pretty good idea. Now that's interesting. The owner of that property is St. George's Crypt. St. George's Crypt is a charity for the homeless. So very interesting find there, by the way, because what that indicates is more than likely that is a HMO for the homeless individual. So it's a social housing property, which is, by the way, a really great investment as well as helping out individuals. Side note there. So I can see that from my comparables. But if I want to go over to the per square foot comparables on that, then what I can do is change it to per square foot. And let's say mine is, I mean, this property here is 155 per square foot. And we can see however big that is. But let's say mine is I don't know, 1,000 square foot, then that's £155,000 property. Obviously, this is 1,098 square foot, as you can see here. Let's say ours is 1,300 square foot, then it's likely to be worth more than that individual property. But that's quite a lot that we found out just by looking there. I can see the square footage of the area. I can also quickly see that, right, this one is owned by St. George's Crypt. So I'm going to click on a few more around that, because if others are owned by that, that's a private owner. Might do an overlay on here just to see the ownership. So let's check these other green ones. That one's a Hong Kong investor. Pretty cool to know that. Different companies. Wow. Really gives a lot of information. And all of this is really important to your due diligence. And the cool thing for me is it's all in one place. TP Impact Housing, I happen to know, is also a social housing provider. This one, Zoom Property Buyers. Zoom Property Buyers is a huge buying company, by the way. In fact, the one that we looked at, River Greet Property, never heard of those ones, but immediately you can see from this small part of due diligence how many of these properties are owned by companies here. And it's really quite powerful understanding that information, because now you know this is likely to be a pretty strong buying area for companies in the area. You can see this huge development there as well, where you can see that's by Armley Limited. So pretty good. Anyway, outside of these residential comparables there, you've also got additional market analysis. So if I want to look at the average residential value, I can do that. So for example, you can see the average per square foot. Now you can zoom out on this, and I think this is pretty powerful. So you can see that you've got these ratings as you're going through. You can put the yields of the properties on. And again, this is a very good indication. I'm not a fan of yield, but it is good as a comparative measure. So you can see that in Armley, for example, you've got 6.22 yield, whereas if I go down to, let's say, near Huddersfield, which is down around here, you can see 9.48. So I know that is a better yield. If we go over here, is that a 10 right there? Let's zoom into this 10.5 area here. Get rid of this. That's a pretty good area, right? That is Burley Road. Yeah, that's a very strong area. Student accommodation mainly. Again, we can look at this in your own time, but one that I think is really cool on this is the vacant properties. Now, this is very new here, but it's giving a really good indication of what is vacant right now. And so you can think about how actually I can probably negotiate a really good price on that. And again, you can see how much property is vacant right now. I'd be quite worried with my property on this, if I'm honest, showing that it's vacant, but it's really good. The other bit that you can go into, by the way, with this is the technical part. So say, for example, you're sourcing a commercial property on this. Well, what you can do is, if, for example, let's say you're trying to source properties for Costa or McDonald's, and they've got all their criteria on it, by the way, you could then search traffic, because a lot of it is based on the traffic. So say, for example, this part here has 53,000 cars a day going through it, or let's say this part here, that's a lot of footfall. That's going to be really good for a Costa or a Starbucks or anything like that. So if you could find a bit of land around that, that's going to be really powerful. But the truth is, it almost does too much analysis, doesn't it? But all of your technical, market and local comparable data is all in one place. The other thing that's really cool, by the way, is your power team. The other thing that Nimbus Maps does is showing that actually your designers, your architects, so if you're not a creative flair like myself, it's all in one place as well. So it actually builds my power team. So I'm not saying you need to use Nimbus Maps, but if you want a one-stop shop and everything in one place, then this is definitely going to be for you. And Nimbus, as today's video sponsor, has put together an insane level package for you, which you can find in the description below. So click on the link there, fill in your details, and you will be blown away with what it can do for you. So let me know if you actually use Nimbus to find your deals, to do the comparables, to finance them. I'm interested to find out more. I'm geeking out massively on Nimbus maps right now. Obviously, Nimbus was just playing a small part in the overall due diligence that we need to do as property investors. It's especially useful for people looking to get into developments or HMOs and outside of buy-to-lets as well. So hopefully you've got value from this video. Let me know if you want to do more videos like this in the comments below. If you did, give it a like, and of course if you're new to the channel and you want to find out more about property investment, make sure to hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.